It's my honor to invite Ambassador Tinkurang, the Secretary General of the Council, to introduce our very, very, very distinguished guest speaker. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Distinguished participants, it is such a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to introduce the guest speaker for the day. But where do I start? This is a man who has done it all, and he has been everywhere in a very distinguished career, such that to do justice to introducing him, one has to go all the way from the 60s, because this is where he started. He has been minister of holding several portfolios in government in Mauritania. He has been ambassador to Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, the what we call the Benelux countries, to the EU, to the USA, as foreign minister later, and holder of several executive positions in government. He has done it all. Later on, he became the NGO, he became the executive secretary of the Global Coalition for Africa in Washington, D.C. And by 2002, he became the UN Special Representative for West Africa and chairman of the Joint Commission between Cameroon and Nigeria for the settlement of the maritime and land dispute between the two countries. He has done so much in terms of author of books. He has 2 publications to his name and several awards from Mauritania, from Senegal, from France, from Luxembourg, from Belgium. So, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, I cannot complete a rundown of Ambassador Ahmed Ould Abdallah. Such a distinguished career he has had, and no better person to talk to us on the war in Ukraine, the implications for West Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Ambassador to have the floor. Ambassador, over to you.
Ahmed, you have the floor. Ahmed, if you can hear us, you have the floor.
Hello, sir. Please, you have the floor.
Hello?
Yes, now, sir, you have the floor, sir. If you can hear me, you have the floor. Can you hear me? Sorry, we're still having challenges. We can hear you. Can you hear us? Is my mic working? Hello, Ahmed, you have the floor, if you can hear us.
I hear hardly. I don't know what is wrong. I gave you another number to try me.
No, but now we can hear you very clearly.
You hear me?
Very clearly, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but he may try me another. Anyhow, I'm really sorry by this, though we tried, we tested our conference. But first of all, being sorry, I would like also to say it is, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be with you today in this video. I hope before the end it will work. I cannot start talking about the issue, the subject, the impact of what is going on in Europe, in Ukraine, without having, first of all, an idea to expressing myself when I think of Accra, when I think of Ghana, of the late Secretary General Kofi Annan, my former boss, my friends, and I think of him because I was unable to attend his funerals for future reasons in Mauritania. I had no traveling papers to go to attend the funeral. So I hope to be soon in Accra and to visit his last place and family. This being said, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, my dear DK, the subject you asked me to address today was indeed not on my mind. And I think it was not in my agenda or in your agenda a few weeks ago, because when it comes to war, it comes to not only civil war, but war between nations, usually we don't think of Africa, we don't even think of developing countries, because conflict and war were seen only in our region, Middle East, Latin America, Africa, Asia. Since World War II and the bombing of Serbia in 99, armed violence has not been in Northern Hemisphere, not in Europe. And I'm sorry, I feel sorry for all the victims of this war. It has been in the making for a long time, especially between Ukraine and Russia, and I remember also Georgia and other places. So it is a surprise. And other surprise for me with this war is that European countries have shown their generosity by offering to Ukrainian, to the victim. They were not calling them migrant, but they were calling them migrant of quality. And this is very good because it is a victory for humanity to see that the victims of war are welcome. And we should see it as that and be happy with it. A final surprise to me came from New York during the vote of General Assembly. The vote on Ukraine on Security Council was blocked. So the UN used the old State Department Dean Acheson during the Korean War in 1950, when to try to avoid the Security Council, they went to General Assembly. And the vote to General Assembly this year on Ukraine was very interesting for us Africans. We didn't vote like in one-party system, meaning 99.9%. We voted, I think, in independence or depending on each country perception of its own national interest. And I think that is a big progress for Africa, not to vote when something is vital to countries' interest, not to vote like one-party system. So we had 28 countries voting yes, 17 abstentions, 8 countries not participating, and I heard one country voted against. Anyhow, Mr. Chairman, Ukrainian war could have been prevented through discussion between concerned countries, because they are, really all rich, well-organized countries. For years, this war was in the making between Russia and the West, between Russia and NATO, or Russia and Europe, or Russia and the US. And it is something, in my opinion, that could have been, I don't say avoided, but minimized. And it reminded me, like many people were mentioning it, that the international community, puts more condition on developing countries, especially Africans, but not on developed countries. And many people were thinking of George Orwell when he wrote in Animal Farms that 4 legs is good things, 2 legs is a bad things, meaning animals are okay, men are very difficult, they have to be persecuted, something like that. So what is going on is a reminder that very little things change, and countries mostly think national interest. Today, thinking national interest in Africa, we cannot avoid thinking again on that our countries should face the situation, of course, how to address a number of issues, humanitarian, economic, and political, that will be consequences of this war that I hope will soon be over. And we will think, of course, on oil and gas and everything we import. And we are not the only one importing, everyone imports. But of course, priority is going to be given to refugees and the displaced person from Ukraine, probably some Russian. We in the continent will see Ukraine and its population, international economy with gas, oil, agriculture, maritime transport. We have to think on that more funds usually allocated to international NGOs working in Africa may be cut or may even dry. So as a consequence, a crisis now going on, like in the Sahel, but especially in Libya, in South Sudan, in Mozambique, and so on, might be more seriously affected. And the situation in the Sahel, and I'm very happy to see with you the former Secretary General of G5 Sahel, Sadiq, our friend. So we have to see if the fight against terrorism will be weakened. Our support to the G5 Sahel may not be will not be in a priority in any case in the US and in EU. So there will be a change. Will they succeed? Will they have more problem? If the terrorist continues, the people with the mentality of plotists and so on will think we have a plot against the continent. But anyhow, what is important to me is the exchange we will have. And before giving the floor back to the chair, I think there are always opportunities in a crisis. And what are the opportunities in the crisis, despite the cost to the population in Russia and especially in Ukraine? what are the opportunities to revisit some policies in our countries? You know, the unexpected consequences of a conflict could be like those of World War II. It is because World War II and the weakening of European that most of our countries gained their independence. And the first to gain independence, March 57, I think, was Ghana. Would this war force or pushes some countries, our friend in Europe, with whom we just had a summit last month, would it push them to have a new cooperation with us? Because war will weaken, and I hope it will not be a very serious, devastating war like World War II, with its genocide and consequences and so on. But war is terrible, but it could give an opportunity to review the relationship, to review the economic relations, and to push our countries to make more effort in administration, because it is vital that government get better managed to address economic issues. We will not succeed economically if we don't have better management, and better management is something that should be always an objective. Even if we are better than 5 years ago, we should try to be better every year after year. So for me, one opportunity, and again, we condemn violence, we don't like death, refugees, displaced persons, but the opportunity is to see, as after World War II, if our countries will get a chance, a space, not get it, fight to get it, to make their economy better. We have the best areas for agriculture. We accept exploitation of mining, oil, minerals, but we never accept international cooperation in agriculture. It is very vital for us to feed ourselves, our people, and to export. So this is an invitation I address to all of us, that, and the lesson is not from me, it was from late, I had discussion with the late Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles, telling me, why don't we allow some of our land to able and competent organization in a private sector or state who can help develop agriculture? He told me in Ethiopia, we work with India, work with some Middle East countries to export flowers, to export. We have never been able to do it for centuries. Why don't we start? So this war is an opportunity to review our nationalism on agriculture, and which is not the same as in oil or minerals and so on. Another point is, will Western countries manage the crisis, the current bloody crisis, and it is not over yet? Would they manage it as they did in Afghanistan and in Iraq? Meaning with distance, and to look beyond the short term, and to see long-lasting consequences for the affected countries. And because they are their neighbors, I hope they will try, and we all should support them to have a better conclusion, a better management of this war, and a shorter war than what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, and what we have now in Libya, long ongoing war. At this level, it has been a paradox to see countries like in Africa, again, I mentioned it, giving big oil license mineral, but again, I come on it, no investment, no international investment in agriculture. And I know for sure, for instance, that Ukraine with Russia are the #2 and 1 exporter of cereals. But in Ukraine, I know that there were Western enterprises privately just after the end of communism. We should think of what can we do in our country. Another point before concluding is what consequences this war will have on our relationship, I mean, economic and diplomatic, of course, with China. Would China keep addressing and investing politically and especially economically in our countries, or will this war in Europe see China addressing and its relationship with the West, especially with the US, on a new angle? I know the situation was not among the best between the two countries, though they have been in good trades. China reserve are in the Fed, and the relationship are developed, the personnel, I mean, human and economy. But we all know that there is a kind of sensitivity and awareness and the relations between the two big countries. And this is a lesson for our diplomat, our leadership, you know, to see the China attitude toward this crisis. Closer to Russia, not breaking with the West, and what to do. So I had a West African friend, not a friend, he was older than me when I started working in the 70s. He was telling me, we African like to be always combatant for others. We did it during World War I, World War II, fighting on European front, and we're still doing it as civilian, independent. We have to fight for ourselves, not to be fighting as a combatant and so on. And in the same spirit, in 1993, I was with a group co-organizer of the first TICAD, Tokyo International Conference on African Development. And President Museveni was among the speakers. And people were praising globalization. And when he had the floor, when I said people, it was Japan government, but also most minister of development cooperation, US and European. And Museveni, as usually he does with jokes, he said, you talk globalization, we are the first globalized. I saw, to my surprise, I was watching a football game between Peru and Colombia, and I saw many black among them. I never thought there were black in Colombia or in these countries. And he mentioned his father, I think, was fighting in Burma with British rifle unit and so on. So we have been, whatever, north or south, east, west of a continent, we have been always globalized, and it is good. Though it is very difficult now because the constraint on visa to go to Europe or whatever. And, but this situation is a reminder that we have to act together to strengthen our position. Of course, there are specific interests for each country or region, but the situation should help be starting for our countries, starting in addressing economy, emergencies, and so on. But the first who are going to suffer from this situation are the neighbors in Europe. I hear on a regular basis, TV, press reports that Africa is going to suffer and more cereal and so on. Yes, I think we will feel the consequence economically. But the biggest partner of Russia, of Ukraine, are Western countries and China, because they are rich, the volume is huge. Of course, we are smaller and we are weaker, and everything missing has a higher cost. But still, we should not forget that the real problem is, unfortunately, between our friends in the north. And again, in conclusion, I'm thanking you. I hope before you give me the floor to participants for question, my microphone will work. But again, I never thought I will see this kind of war, almost a civil war, between northern countries since 1999 and the bombing in Belgrade. Most conflict were in the south. So thank you very much, and I am ready to address questions, and hope I have not been too long. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Ahmed. And this morning, when we spoke, you gave me the impression that you wanted to have a discussion, but not to have a presentation. And so I can understand how you've addressed the program. We'll be coming back to the other issues that you raised, particularly our relations with China and the importance of agricultural cooperation. But in recent times, you've been working very closely on the Sahel. And we would like your views on the direct implications of this war on stability in the Sahelian area. Ahmed, did you hear my question? I see that we're still getting problems with the audio. Ahmed, did you hear my question? Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, let me try somebody else. Maybe a question coming from the floor will be, oh, we're so sorry about these challenges. Do we have Atta Mensah still online? Atta, if you're online, would you like to make a comment about agriculture and our continent and cooperation? I think between Ahmed and I, we have difficulties, so maybe there will be easier communication between the participants and him.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador. I'm just adjusting my, for getting me. My name is Joe Atta Mensah, and I'm with the UN Economic.
Go on, Atta, go on.
Hello?
Ahmed, we'll come back to you.
Okay, I hear you, but you don't hear me. Okay.
Oh, we hear you. Ahmed,
Hello?
we hear you. We hear you.
I hear you very well. Yeah.
I hear you very well too.
Okay.
So there's somebody on the floor going to make a comment from the ECA.
Okay.
Atta Mensah, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dikosey, and thank you, Ambassador Huda Abdallah. You always don't disappoint. I know you, but you don't know me because you've made several interventions on in Addis on the floors of the AU. My intervention or my comment would be more, and also I recognize the distinguished participants who are participating in this meeting. I salute you all. My intervention is basically to say that to look at the economic consequences of the Ukrainian war on us, we Africans. We do know, and I share the sentiments of everyone to say that war is bad, and my heart goes out to the suffering that has been brought to the people of Ukraine. However, economies in Africa, if this thing should last longer, will take a hit. We do know that when immediately the war broke up, if you look at the prices given December, when America started, or countries started to say that Russia has its troops lined up to go to Ukraine, and you compare it to when the war broke out on the 24th of February, oil prices immediately went high. And it not only affected African countries, it affected everywhere. Because Russia is a significant player in the oil market, and to be let loose, to be choked off because of sanctions affected the prices. And all of a sudden you see prices going up into $120 a barrel or more. Now, on this question, since we are dealing with Ghana, the only thing that comes to me is that I know that yesterday the finance minister made some statements in terms of measures being taken to address the challenges that Ghanaians face in terms of oil. It's great and it's good. The central bank has also done its part by increasing its policy rate by 250 basis points. I don't know, to fight the cedi. But I think, yes, these are measures that needed to be taken. But it's something which I find that we need long-lasting solutions to that, because these are temporary measures, so Ghana would have to take advantage. And I agree with the eminent speaker that you've got to transform your economies. You've got to look inwardly, and therefore Ghana and African countries should be keen paying attention to the African Continental Free Trade Area to do whatever it can to strengthen it and implement it, and so to allow Africans to trade amongst themselves. The exchange rate misalignments is going to affect African countries. But mind you, the US and other Western and the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve Board, have all raised their interest rates to fight inflation. Now, if their interest rates goes up, the LIBOR rates is going to go up, which is the London interbank rates. And most of our debts are priced off that. So it tells me that immediately what we're going to see is that our external debt in terms of servicing costs is going to go up. So these are food for thought for all of us. So it is not entirely the making of maybe the government. I'm not saying the government doesn't bear responsibility, but these are international issues that are coming up as a result of the war. Now, what struck me also in the part of the war is to do with the sanctions that were imposed on Russia in terms of the switch account. They were choked off in terms of money transfers and all that. And it struck me that this could be another tool that could be used against us in case of one day we have an issue. So what struck me is that perhaps Africa should begin to look into itself to have its own kind of a payment system to deal with itself in terms of trade amongst itself. Because if you are choked off of switch, how are you going to transfer funds around to pay for your imports or to receive receipts for your exports? It's going to be a challenge. So I know Afro-Exim Bank has started and has built a Pan-African payment system to support the African Continental Free Trade Area. it is important that we look into it if we could tell to them to expand it and to look at all kinds of payments. So therefore, in case, I'm not saying that would happen, in case it happens, we also sanction it in another way. We find a way to do it. The war has also taught me that, and I agree with the speaker, that we need to deepen regional integration. Everybody is saying that, Ukrainian refugees must be taken care of, brought in. How many Africans are dying in Lampedusa, drowning, and nobody's saying that let's receive them? And yet when we say we should implement the free movement of persons on the continent, there's resistance, right? But look at what has happened. I'm not trying to play racism or anything, but that's the fact. So I think in the sense, this is what I would suggest. Let us try and look inwardly. There's nothing wrong. Take opportunity to look inwardly, strengthen our institutions. Let's look into promoting export-driven. It's only exports that will solve our problems with exchange rates because it's linked directly to the balance of payments. We need to do that. And let's see how oil countries, there was one time in which I think I remember, Chair, which in one discussion you had raised in terms of importing those who import oil, countries that import oil, and those who export oil. When crisis like this, it benefits the exporting countries, the oil exporting countries, and hurts the oil importing countries. Is there a way in terms of an African solidarity to have a way that within Africa, when these things happen, the oil exporting countries would be there for the oil importing countries, that they will not pass on all the rising prices onto African importing oil countries, because it hurts. I mean, Ghana, for instance, is a net importer, so it's a challenge for Ghana. I mean, so let's all come together and the opposition, the ruling party, to see how the challenges that we face, that would have a bipartisan discussion on the economy, particularly since this is an external force, we find a way that we can address this, our challenges. I'm sorry that I've been too long, but I thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to intervene. Thank you.
Atta, you have not been long at all. I knew you were going to make a few provocative statements. That's why I wanted you to have the floor. Talking about the oil compensation mechanism you raised, you recall that several years ago, you and I had this discussion in the corridors of the ECA, and we thought we needed to develop this idea further. But now that you've raised it again, it's an opportunity to think about it a little deeper. Thank you very much, Atta. I noticed, before I go back to Ahmed, I noticed that our brother, Dr. Osei from Delaware State University is online. And I want to give him the floor because he's recently been looking at our relations with China. And Ahmed mentioned the possibility of the evolution of our relations with China in recent times. Akwesi, would you like to make any comment about what the speaker said about China-Africa relations following this war?
Yes, first of all, good evening, everybody. And I have to say that I sort of missed exactly what he said. But generally, I have always felt that Africa was going to play a big role in China's march towards a world power, excuse me, towards being a world power. And it seems to me that this war has contributed to that march, because however it ends up, we're going to find ourselves dealing with a true superpower. If we didn't agree to that before, now it is clear that given what has happened in Eastern Europe or in the middle of Europe, China is clearly poised to move on as perhaps not a bipolar US and China, but what I call a regional polarity, as in North America, Asia, China, and Japan, and the other Asian tigers, Europe, especially EU, and we're going to have a true continental polar system. I think it would change the terrain that we've been working with, and this is where China is going to rely on African support. Fortunately or unfortunately, our leadership needs to make itself available for AU to be an alternative, a parallel power next to all the others. The question is AU ready and up to that task? And I'm afraid I'm not so hopeful about that.
Agwez, thank you very much. Before I go back to Ahmed, I'd like to give the floor to Mama Sidiku, who's joining us from Ethiopia, I think.
Yes,
Mama,
good.
Are you on the floor? Are you with us, Mama Sidiku?
Hello, me?
Yes.
Not sure. Something is up.
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay. Hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sidiku.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead, Sidiku. Can you hear us? Oh, I think we've lost Mama Sidiku. Are you still with us, Mama Sidiku? Oh, what a shame. We tried to get him back. Are you with us, Sidiku? No, I think we've lost
Yes,
him. Yes, go ahead.
Sir. I'm
Go
back.
ahead.
I just got back.
Go
Also
ahead.
confusing around here.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes.
I don't hear him.
We don't hear you. Can you unmute yourself, please? Oh, please go ahead. Mr. Sidiku, you can go ahead. I see that the internet is a bit slow.
Monsieur Richidi Abakar, que je suis dans la conférence, je le rappelle. S'il te plaît.
D'accord. Sidiku, écoute, on va vous rappeler dans quelques minutes parce qu'on a du mal à vous entendre. D'accord? À tout de suite. I think its net is a bit weak. Ahmed, would you like to make any comments on the two comments made so far?
Okay. Thank you. First, I rather say that I agree with what the two speakers have said. I agree with them broadly on what they said. The consequences, the negative side of the war, and how the first speaker mentioned the domestic, a stronger domestic front, and to think of oil compensation. And his hope that the war will be short. Our colleague or a brother from Delaware, thinking China, Africa together, long march, and change the field. Honestly, I have no objection. On the contrary, I agree with them. But my point is, maybe it is not very modern, but I think without World War II, I think And maybe other consideration, the rise of Russia, our countries would not have been quickly independent from 57 to 66. So this crisis will show, and I'm not cynical about it. I'm not saying, well, they are fighting between themselves and it is an opportunity for Africa and the other countries to get a place, a bigger place. No, I'm saying that it's just when you see the vote in the General Assembly, and it is only a vote, it is not even Security Council vote, and it has no military or financial implication. And you see how it created a debate or exchange between our Western friends and partner, because we are close to them. We made studies there, we have friends, everything. But the debate on the way African voted, abstention or no, or not participating, is such a debate that we had a second vote, forcing some countries to review their vote. So I think this crisis is an opportunity for individual African to make a difference and to lead. I am, like you, a great supporter of African Union. I think when you compare to other regional organizations, they are doing well. Still, I think progress comes from individual states. If it were not the state who called for independence or started, whatever the reserve we may have on their economic policy today, these countries will lead the march for autonomy, not only independence, but autonomy in international relations, might now have an opportunity of this crisis to make a place for a country like Ghana or I don't know, or, Cote d'Ivoire or whatever. But as a group, the group will follow, like when created in African Union. You remember they had two groups, Casablanca and Monrovia. But the leadership who created were 2-3 countries. I think the situation now, whatever the economic impact and results in oil or in agriculture, and we have to change our approach, seeking compensation. The field, as our friend from Delaware said, the field had changed. The rules are changing. So, yes, we should support our regional organization, ECOWAS and SADC and African Union indeed, but individual countries, because the responsibility of an elected president in Ghana is vis-a-vis his population. So my opinion, the change will come, the opportunity from the crisis will come if our leaders establish very quickly a crisis unit to provide some thinking. And this is my proposal. If 2 or 3 presidents at national level say, what is the impact on cocoa, on oil in Ghana? How to develop this field? Will the manioc be, how to develop it better to compensate for the weakness in wheat or in whatever? It is an opportunity, again, unfortunate opportunity, because we cannot be happy to see our friend fighting between themselves, friend and partner. We are not happy as African. We cannot be happy to see refugees displaced and death. We suffered them. We suffered from them. We don't like them to see. But the crisis is, as he said, changing the field, how to take it by responsible leadership. if you go behind a big organization, it is not easy. It is not easy. It is not contradictory, but it is not easy. So this is my point on this. We have an opportunity how to develop it. And my insistence is on agriculture. We have been accepting the advice that agriculture is it cannot be open to international investment. Oil is maybe gas, everything can be international, but agriculture. But people will not take the land from Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire to their home country. Investment is there. We have to see, not only to feed ourselves, but to be competitive. And it will give resources to develop infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and to develop the industry and so on. So this is my point. I agree, and I understand the 2 points made, but the changing the field is we have to change at our level, Ghana, not only African Union, because you see, when it comes to national interest, look what is going on now in when Russia had its problem, it becomes 16 republic because national interest. So Mr. Chairman, this is the point I would like just to say my reaction.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. As usual, you are asking for a paradigm shift. Edwina, I noticed you asked for the floor. Are you with us still? If you're with us, Edwina, you have the floor. I think we've lost Edwina. May I ask the Vice President of the Council who has asked for the floor, Ambassador Cabral Amie, would like to make a comment. Ambassador Cabral, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to express our appreciation to the speaker for a very thoughtful intervention. My issue is about his comment about the pattern of voting in the General Assembly as a positive development, because we didn't, as it were, follow one line. But I also want to believe that it shows that we are divided and not the African Union. Because in the past, on such issues, much as we had our various positions and interests, we managed to come together. I'm aware of the Casablanca, the Monrovia group at the beginning of the AU or the OAU. But along the line, I think that on such issues, a united voice also gives a sign to the world that Africa is an emerging force. And so when you have countries voting along different lines, not necessarily for the common interest, but for their own peculiar national interest, then there should be a reason for concern. So that's my take on your comment.
Ahmed, before you comment,
yes.
Remember when we were talking this morning, I raised the point that the argument, for instance, that Senegal made was that as the current chairman of the African Union, they needed a certain margin for maneuver to be able to negotiate with Putin. That is why in the first instance, Senegal abstained. But a lot of Africans have found it very difficult to agree with what President Macky Sall's position, the initial position was. I think that's what Cabral is referring to. What is your own comment about Africa's voting pattern? The first one and the second one. Ahmed, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. On the first intervention, I fully understand what the Vice President has said, that because we are not very strong, a united vote make us a united vote, a united voice is good for us. I completely understand that point. And I shared But there are some, for instance, an issue of direct concern to us, like apartheid. I think African will vote and have voted together. When there is a national, not national, a continental issue, it is normal that we vote together. But when it comes, in my opinion, again, and I'm happy with your question because it will help me rethink my position. When it comes to a country like this one, to a vote like this one, some of our countries have a problem of their own sovereignty or their own. So I understand those countries who voted yes, and the same way I understand countries who abstained or didn't participate. Of course, it is difficult to accept voting no, but yeah, we know Eritrea did it, and they have their own reason. When it comes to issues where some country has a vital national interest at stake, I can understand their vote. But when it comes to general issues like apartheid or like mistreatment of any African migrant in a country, or the way some Africans were mistreated when leaving Ukraine, I understand we have to have the same strong position. But when it comes to these issues, I told you, it is difficult. I understand diversity. I think it is a source of strength. If not, people who need our vote, it will be like a one-party system. They go to Addis or to one president chair and say, vote for this. So I think it is good for us to have this flexibility, like in Asia. Culturally, we have a tendency to be one-party system. So it is good to have some nuances. On Senegal vote, I am among people who were surprised by the first vote, abstention. Then I saw Senegalese press or comments saying that it was to manage a role for African Union chair. But when the second vote came, and by the way, Mr. Chairman and you participant, why we had this second vote? What is the reason? I have not even seen the reason. Was it to give us an opportunity to change our mind? Was it, and I saw the statement by the US permanent representative, a lady who knows Africa very well. She was in Addis, we know her, she is respected, but she complained against, our countries, some of our countries who abstained or voted contra. So, but Senegal, I think maybe as a result of a call with Putin or after discussion with some partner or with some partisan in Senegal, has reviewed its position. It started even last week because in Geneva on the Human Rights Commission, I think the Senegalese didn't vote the way they voted in New York.
Yeah.
So, and next year they have election. Next June they have parliamentary election. Maybe if the president is taking all this into account. Thank you.
I particularly like the point you made about Senegal maybe having consulted some partners. That is the language of a former foreign minister. Now, it's always useful to hear the views of IDEC, and I noticed that IDEC is on board. Dr. Akwete, if you're still with us, we'll appreciate your comments. Dr. Akwete. Ima, are you still with us?
Hello?
Yes. Emmanuel. Oh, I think it's, no, it's IDEC office, yeah. No, I think he's left us. Good. Are there any more comments from the floor? Any questions before we overtire our dear friend Ahmed, who's spent the whole day with us from this morning and who's calling us from. Okay, Emmanuel, I see you're back on the line. Emmanuel Idek, you have the floor. Oh, Emmanuel, are you still with us? All right.
No.
Emmanuel, are you with us?
Hello, Ambassador.
Yes.
Yes. So my name is Emmanuel. I do not work with IDEG. I work with the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, which is a regional initiative by the Center for Democratic Development, Ghana, CDD Ghana.
Fantastic. Emmanuel, go ahead.
All right. So I wanted to comment on the point that was just made by the speaker. I mean, the speaker who spoke before you came in, concerning Africa's parting of votes during the recent UN resolution that was actually turned down. So basically, I wanted to note that this was an opportunity. I mean, the recent voting that they just had in the UN was an opportunity for Africa to actually come out and then stand on its grounds when it comes to defending the United Nations Charter, which is based on the promotion of human rights. And again, when you look at the reason for the formation of the OAU and what they stood for, to decolonize the continent and also to protect. I mean, one of the aims of the OAU was to defend the territorial integrity of African countries. And so I was thinking that this was a very big opportunity for Africa to reaffirm our position when it comes to the protection of our territorial integrity and actually vote against the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I was very much surprised looking at the number of African countries that joined the United Nations. And in the end, only 28 African countries voted for the resolution. Out of the number of countries, I mean, out of the 54 countries, African countries, about 17 African countries chose to abstain, and 8 did not attend to vote at all. I mean, I was very much surprised. And all of these countries, I mean, if you look at the reasons that they gave, South Africa, citing examples of, Russia's involvement in the whole period of apartheid, Zimbabwe's position, and that of Macky Sall's Senegal, and why they chose not to vote for the resolution. I mean, as a president or as a chairman of the African Union, I was a bit surprised. And so basically, I want to say that it was an opportunity for us to reaffirm the main reason for the formation or for the coming together of African countries in the formation of the OAU. And so, yes, so basically, this is what I want to note, Ambassador. Thank you very much.
Manuel, thank you very much for your comment. And I'd rather not immediately make a comment about this, but what surprised me was that if you read the content of the joint statement issued by President Macky Sall and the President of the Commission, Faki, that statement stated the position which you've just espoused. Then, again, I asked myself, where did I think Mali was going to vote? Or maybe Burkina Faso, or Algeria, or Morocco? These are questions I was asking myself. And Ahmed earlier made comments about national interest and how your political considerations come in, etc., etc. I'm sure Ahmed is itching to make a comment about this again.
Okay. Well, I heard your comment and the speaker before you. Again, you see, when it comes to right, I fully agree that because we are weak countries, we should always stand with legality. Yeah. It is our best interest. But this vote is indeed legality because a country is attacked. But we have some countries who have been very legalistic, like India. They have abstained. And they are very close allied to the US, Australia, Japan, and Korea. The last summer, they had an alliance, almost military or whatever. You know, India, US, Japan, Korea, and Australia. But they abstained. And, but correct me, maybe Brazil abstained, I'm not sure. Though he is seen as conservative and approach to some democracy. If you look, African voted in majority, yes, and they were right. It is good to vote yes, because invasion is very difficult to accept, especially for our countries. We have been exposed to invasion. At the same time, I think this case, the diversity of a vote is a show of strength. Again, it would not have been acceptable if the invaded country was an African, or if it was an issue, like I said, apartheid, or during the war, the way African students trying to cross were mistreated, African all stood with them. Still, to Emmanuel, I think the one-party system, I call it one-party system. If we quickly vote together, it makes us vulnerable to influence. You know, if the speaker or the chair will speak on our behalf. Again, I am ready when it comes to principles. And here is a principle, of course, an independent country at the UN, even before the dismemberment or whatever you call it, collapse or the end of Soviet Union. I remember my first years in the UN, Ukraine was a member state along with Russia and Belarus, but it was, we were told, a demand from Stalin to have them together. Again, honestly, I'm not shocked. On the contrary, I think because it is not most vital, the diversity of vote is a source of strength, and we are not seen as something already in the pocket. It helps give more flexibility diplomatic to our countries. And on the statement, the chair Faki and President Macky Sall and the vote of Mali, Burkina Faso, well, Mali maybe was voting against ECOWAS, maybe, or maybe for the Russian troop. Morocco, Algeria, it is very interesting. Algeria as military and all time during their independence war, they had support from Russia more than any other countries. So we can understand. But Morocco has also its own problem, and no yes, no, no, but abstain. And as I was telling the chair this morning, I think this diversity gives strength. And next time we have a crisis, countries involved will go seeking opinion. They will not go like in a one-party system, secure the vote of one person and tell him, okay, the other are les moutons de Panurge, are sheep, and they will go with you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Cabral, you have the floor.
Yes, I want your reaction to this dominant school of thought on social media that seeks to highlight the double standards of the international community. They cite a case that in the past, the other superpower has invaded with impunity Libya, Iraq, and done all kinds of things in other parts of the world. And so there's this element of equalization that why are we complaining? Because when the US does it, everybody is quiet. Why raise any objection to the Russian adventure in Ukraine? I don't know what your reaction will be to that school of thought on social media.
Ahmed, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, first, I saw the importance of social media the last 5 years with the terrorist and the crisis in the Sahel. I was talking with some friends, especially French friends. I told them your presence in Mali has a stronger opponent than the Islamists. It is the social media, because social media, everywhere they are very active, all the world over. But in Africa, they have more importance because it democratizes, quote unquote, the information. It is not us who had made the studies, who have contact and so on. Social media has not democratize only the information, but make it very powerful in the hand of the people. You know, the guy on the street selling his peanuts or repairing a bicycle or whatever has now his voice. I'm not saying it is good or bad, but it is a fact. The guy in remote places, in a remote neighborhood, interfere, talk, aggress. And all our leadership, social, political, economic, should take that into account. And it on the war in Ukraine, or it is very funny, very interesting to see how they are active. They have their own leaders, and especially they don't have to speak in English, French, Arabic, or Spanish. It is the local dialect. So it is, the impact is not like in America or Europe or China, Russia. In Africa, it has popularized, democratized the information. It is not as elite in our living rooms or offices. It is in local dialect. And there is a risk, as in Mali. For instance, in Mali, very funny, they have, it is so strong. And of course, sometimes, sometimes 75%, it is manipulated. In most our countries, maybe the world over, but other people have their work, they have their books, and so on. But in Africa, it is really very close to our culture. You know, French will call it a palabre. We are sitting there and chatting and so on around the tea or coffee, and people say whatever they want. That French are exploiting, French army is exploiting gold mine in Mali. It is absolutely not true, but they make pictures, and with soldiers, you know, loading plane of gold. And when I tell them these soldiers will not do it, if they are asked by their chief to do it, they will go on social media. But who cares? The Malian will believe in it. So today, if this social media, I think it is a phenomenon in Africa. It is like a Aesop tongue, the positive side and negative side, but we have to be very careful with it and to see how to address it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very, very much, Ahmed. Good to see you. I'm looking forward to you coming back to Ghana soon to talk to our company, which is Ghana's resting place. All too soon, we're just about to end our session. And I noticed that Ambassador Yao was saying it's an executive member of the council, it's still online. Yao, Ambassador, if you're online, would you on behalf of the council express our gratitude to Ambassador? My friend,
thank you. In any case, I'm really sorry. We had a good test with your technician and you gave him my thanks. I'm thanking you, and I hope I have a plan to go to Cote d'Ivoire late April. I will try to make a stop in Accra to pay a visit to late demeure, late place of Kofi Annan, and also to see you. My best to you, to our mutual friends, including the president and former president Kofo, and all our mutual friends. But thank to the participant, and congratulate you for organizing this Center for International. I mean, your club. I think the Council on Foreign Affairs is very important to have a free discussion. I hope our government will listen to some of the suggestions. They come from Addis, from Accra, different neighborhood, from Delaware, here from Mauritanian, and we cannot just in our countries listen to relatives who come in the evening and say whatever. I think it is good in our countries that also will listen to all, established, studied opinion. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for this, the way it ended. I would like to have seen all of you. I see here Joseph Atamensa, Ifnik, Anne-Marie Freeman, Foucault Couye, and so, the participant, and I cannot talk to them. Sorry. Thank you very much.
I will say you have the final word.
Yeah. Well, the President and members of the Council, sure, I speak on your behalf when I thank Ambassador Ahmed Ould Abdallah for a very able and lucid presentation. Ambassador Ahmed, I like the rather relaxed armchair presentation that put all of us at ease on an issue, on a trend that has influenced many discussions over the past month, if not more than a month. I mean, the pros and cons of the conflict, moving on to the voting in the Security Council, the whys and hows as to why even countries in Africa, some countries chose to abstain or even vote against the resolution. But I think your presentation and the contribution from the floor has also helped inform all of us about the war and what goes forward. I'd like to focus also on the point that you made, that as we look at how it affects West Africa, which is in fact key to this discussion, we should begin to see how agriculture, policies on agriculture could be harmonized at the sub-regional level as one of the advantages and the takeaways from the crisis that has emerged. Thank you, and I pray that we as a council will be able to influence in a very neutral way policy discussions at our national level. As we bring our presentation to an end, we do hope that we all go away better informed, particularly because we know social media now has a grip on many, many minds. And I'm glad that our discussion also covered the role of social media these days in information management and information dispensation. So, Ambassador, thank you. Your presentation has dispersed and cleared the air about where we need to begin to focus on as this conflict moves on, and our prayer is that it ends quickly so that the crisis can be managed and each country can begin to look at how it's been impacted and what can be done to reduce the impacts. Thank you, President, for giving me the floor to speak and bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good night to all our participants, and thanks for participating in today's lecture. We'll be announcing our next lecture very soon. Good night, and thank you very much. Once again, Ahmed, I look forward to seeing you soon in Accra.